Hi, and welcome to this Blender tutorial for beginners. If you have never touched Blender before, this is the tutorial for you. By the end of this video, you will be able to create a render like this while learning how to move in the 3D space, add objects, add lights, apply materials, and render an image. We will make it text because it doesn't involve modeling, which we will talk about in the next video. So let's get started. Okay, so everything that I'll do with the keyboard and my mouse is going to be highlighted here at the bottom right. So if I press A or if I click the middle mouse button, you will see it highlighted here. So let's get started. So let's start with moving around in the 3D space, and I will do this using the mouse and the middle mouse button. So make sure you have a mouse with the scrolling wheel and the middle mouse button, because holding down the middle mouse button and moving the mouse around will allow you to tumble around the scene. And then scrolling the wheel allow you to zoom in and zoom out. This is a dolly, this is not a zoom. You have to imagine that you are in the scene with the camera and you're moving the camera forward and around. If you hold shift while holding the middle mouse button, it's like the hand move in Photoshop and Illustrator. We are all familiar with it. So tumble around with the middle mouse button, hold shift to move, and scroll in and out in the scene. Okay, so this is the most important thing because we're going to move around the scene a lot, and you better get familiar with all those very simple commands that allow you to move around. The next one is the A button on the keyboard. Pressing the A, select everything. As for all, select all. And then using Alt A is going to deselect everything. A, select everything. Alt A, deselect everything. The second one is the X, which deletes an object. So select everything with A, press X, and then click on it. And everything's going to be deleted. Control Z is the classic undo. Now, delete everything with X, and let's add our text. So there are two ways to add an object. You can go to add and then add an object that you want. You have meshes like cube, circle, sphere, and then you have text. Now we have our text on the floor and we want to go see what's going on closer. So let's use the middle mouse button and the scroll wheel to get closer, and then holding shift we're gonna center it. Scroll a little bit more, and there we go. Now we want to edit this text. So in Blender there are two modes. There is the object mode and the edit mode. So in the object mode you can just move things around and rotate them and then scale them, but to edit the text we need to enter the edit mode, and to enter the edit mode you have to click on tab. So clicking on tab, you are now in edit mode, and you can treat a text like a normal text. So we delete everything and we write hello, scroll out, Blender, and then tap again on tab to go in object mode, and then we have our Blender text. Hello Blender. So we want to rotate this text so it is on the ground. So to do that we introduce a rotation. The rotation also can be done with keys on the keyboard and with the mouse. So let's see with the mouse first. In order to do this with the mouse, let's go here on this little tab on the gizmo and then activate, move, rotate, and scale. We don't need scale at the moment, so we uncheck scale, and then we can now rotate the object on the X-axis. So another important thing are the axes. The red one is the X, the green one is the Y, and then we have to activate the Z axis here on this other tab called viewport overlays, and then we can see also the Z axis, which is the blue one. Okay, this is, let's say, an easy way to rotate things, but it's not very precise to me, because if I want to rotate this of 90 degrees, I have to look at this number up here. You can see when I move, and then I have to, make sure that I hit the 90. The best way to do that is to use the keyboard, writing a simple command to rotate the text, which is R as for rotate on the x-axis, so x, and then 90, enter. Okay, so we have this text rotated 90 degrees on the x-axis. Control Z, and let's do it again. R for rotate, then hit X on the keyboard, and then 90, enter. And now we have the text rotated by 90 degrees. Let's turn off our gizmo here because we don't need it at the moment. We just keep move because it's very handy to move things around. Actually, I want to center this, and I'm doing this by using those arrows. Now we want to add some thickness to this text, and to do that we select the text, we make sure that the text is selected, and then we go on this A, and then geometry, and then extrude, and this is good for us, but if you want to be precise, click on it and write 0.01, and then you have 0.01. If you want more, do like 0.09 or 0.9, and then you can definitely add more precision to your parameters. Now we have our 3D text. What we want to do now, we want to check how it looks, because that's what we want to do, right? Have the final result and, you know, go check how the render looks. So to do that, we want to go in render mode and see how it looks in render mode. Before we do that, we need to go in the render tab here and make sure that we are in cycles, which is the photorealistic engine inside Blender. We also have Eevee, but we'll talk about Eevee in the next video, but not for now. We're going to use cycles. If you have a GPU, please use it because it's faster at rendering. And also those two important parameters here. This is how many samples Blender will process in the final render, and this is how many samples you're going to have in the viewport. Let's consider those samples as the quality of the render. So the computer is going to spend more time refining, defining the scene and denoising the scene, and the higher this number, the more accurate and clean is going to be your scene. So there is a difference between viewport and render, because, you know, sometimes 32 it's okay in the viewport, which is your window, this one your live view, but then you want to push a little bit for the render. Let's see how it looks at 32 in the viewport. So to go in render view, let's click on the last one of those four spheres, which is the render view. So the render view is going to look like this. You know, we don't have lights, we don't have materials. It doesn't look great. And also you can see it's a little bit noisy here. So if we increase 32 to 100, for instance, we're going to see that slowly, you know, until we reach 100, they're going to go away. If you put 250, you see the computer is working and is reaching 250, and now we don't have that noise anymore. If you move around, it's going to start all over again because every view needs to be recalculated. Okay, now we can add some lights and we can add a material. Let's start with lights. So to add light, you go to add and choose light and then point. Okay, this is our light. It's already selected. We can move it around and you can see that the object is already reacting to the light. We can move around and also duplicate this object. We can duplicate using Shift D and then enter, and now we have two lights, one on top of each other, and then we can move the second light to the right, and then we can do it again, Shift D, enter, and move to the center. And now we have three lights lighting our scene. We're gonna go into material view now because we don't want to see exactly the render at the moment, and also it slows down a little bit my viewport. So let's go in material view. We can check the material here. So selecting the text, we can see that it's all white. To change the material, we need to apply a material first. So this text has no material. So the material tab is this icon over here, material properties, and there are no materials. So let's click on new, and it automatically adds a surface material. And the only thing that matters to us at the moment is the color. So let's make this color some orange, like Blender orange. And another little detail that we want to add is the roughness. To check the roughness, let's go in render view and see the effect of the roughness. So the roughness to 0, it means that the text is completely shiny and smooth and reflects the light. As you can see here, we have a very sharp reflection. Rough at its max level, like 1, is basically completely rough, so it's absolutely not shiny at all. So let's pick something between, let's say, 0.3 and 0.5, like this, and it looks good to me. We can probably make this a little bit more on the orange side of the spectrum, and then we have our colored and materialized text. Now we want to add a plane, which is the floor plane, the ground, to make everything looks more realistic. Otherwise our text is going to just float around. So let's do Shift A, add a plane. Remember that you can also add a plane from Add Mesh Plane. Now we can introduce the scale function. So we saw the rotate function, which is by hitting R, and now we're gonna see the scale. So if I select an object, like in this case the plane, and then I hit S and then move my mouse, you can see that this guy is scaling equally on each side. If I just want to scale this object on the X axis, I can do scale S on the X axis, and then it's gonna scale like this. Another way is to have our gizmos to scale, and then we have those little square handles here. This one, remember, is for move, but this one is for scale. So I scale on the X axis this way, and then I scale on the Y axis using this other squarey handle here. And now we have a floor. Let's move a little bit in the center, and then hit S to scale a little bit more, and then we have it. So our ground doesn't have a material, so let's go in render view, selecting our floor plane, and then add new material, and then let's make it blue. Somewhere like this, so that looks like the Blender colors. And also let's make it a little bit less rough, so it has some cool reflection. And there we go, we have it. Now it's very important to understand the concept of camera, because whatever you see in the scene is not exactly what's going to be in your final render. The final render is only what the camera sees. So in order to make those settings, we want to make sure that we do have a camera in the scene. So there's no camera because we deleted at the beginning, and so we add it. Add camera. Now the camera, you can see, is here under here, and we need to move it. You know, it's gonna be very not so easy to center the camera just by moving with your hand. So what you do, you choose an angle that you like, like this, and then with your keyboard there is this shortcut that is Control-Alt-0, and the camera is going to align with your view. Now if you hit this button here, which is the render view, you can see that whatever is in this rectangle is what's going to be in the render. So if I render it now, the H is going to be out, and part of the R and the exclamation mark is going to be out. So we want to move the camera a little bit backward. To do so, let's click N to open the properties panel, and my computer is a little bit slow at the moment. Let's hit N and then go to view and then camera to view. This locks the camera to the view. So if I move the mouse around, I'm also moving the camera. If this one isn't checked, I basically move around, but the camera is actually not moving with me. So lock camera to view. And now to go in camera view and exit the camera view, we just hit the number 0 on the numpad of the keyboard. So 0, camera view, 0, out of the camera view. Okay, now we stay in camera view, we get closer, we get further away. Let's say that this is something that we like. And also what we want to do, we want to make sure that there is no gray space out here. So we select the plane and we scale it until we cover the entire scene like this. That's gonna be a lot. So let's move the camera a little bit down and then, you know, decide which one is our view. If you want to get closer because this square is too small, uncheck the camera to view, get closer, and then check it again, and N to send away this panel. Let's check how it looks. Looks pretty cool. Okay, now we are ready to render. What do we want to do before we render. We go in the render tab and we decide how many samples we want for the final render. And honestly, I saw that even 250 was a little bit noisy. So let's do somewhere like 350. And this is gonna be the amount of samples for our final render. And then now we are technically ready to start. So we go to render and render image, and Blender start rendering our scene. All right, our image is rendered. I'm sorry for this noise. It's the fan of the computer, which was working a lot to make this render done, but we had it done. It took somewhere like a minute 33 seconds to get it done. And then now we're not done with the image because we have to save it. So we go to image, save as, and then, you know, PNG on the desktop, and we call it Hello Blender, and save as image. Now if we go on our desktop, we can see that we have Hello Blender, and this is our first image made with Blender. Congratulations to you, and see you in the next video with the modeling part. Bye.